Alright, hello and welcome back in, everybody. Got a brand new deck tech here for you today. It's for one of my personal decks. We got Gix Yawgmoth Praetor for 1 black. It's a legendary creature, Phyrexian Praetor. It's a 3/3. It says whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, its controller may pay 1 life if they do draw a card, and it has an activated ability for 4 black. Discard X cards. Exile the top X cards of target opponent's library. You may play lands and cast spells from among cards exiled this way without paying their mana cost. So if you're like me, the first thing I thought of was like, wow, this is a Villainous Wealth in the command zone. That sounds like an awesome build around. Spoiler alert, getting into actually playing the deck and using the ability, it was a lot less rewarding than I thought it was going to be. Just playing off of other people's libraries, I thought I was going to get a lot more useful cards, and it turns out it's probably best to save your cards for your own game plan. And if you're in a pickle later on, you might want to use that ability to get some things off your opponent's libraries. So the one we're going to be focusing on obviously is that first ability of having tiny little unblockable guys draw us cards. First up in that category, we got cards like Changeling Outcast. It's 1 black for a 1/1 shapeshifter changeling. It says it can't block or be blocked. Similarly, we got another one, Tormented Soul here. Basically the exact same thing, except it doesn't have shapeshifter or changeling, should I say. And we got a few cards in here with Shadow, which is mainly the Dauthi cards. So right here we got Dauthi Warlord for 1 and a black. It's a star 1 with Shadow. It says Dauthi Warlord has power equal to the number of creatures with Shadow in play. So we do have like 4 or 5. So this actually could get pretty up there in power if we let it. And we're actually not afraid to throw a little few higher costed cards in here as long as the payoff is worth it. With cards like Pharopede, it's 3 mana for a 1/1 artifact creature insect. It has Pharopede can't be blocked, and it says whenever Pharopede deals combat damage to a player, you may remove a counter from target permanent. Pretty much every game you're going to play is going to have some sort of counters on it, whether it be somebody with +1/+1 counters, you know, an indestructible counter from like a Tyrite Sanctum. Very few games you're going to play that has 0 counters whatsoever. So that one is actually a pretty useful ability that we can use all the time. And since we're going to be pecking away our opponent's life totals with these little unblockable guys, we might want to get some extra advantage with cards like Mask of Memory. It's 2 mana for an artifact equipment. It says whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may draw 2 cards. If you do, discard a card and equip 1. Similarly, we got Prying Blade. This one's rammed to the card draw like Mask of Memory, but it says 1 mana for an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+0, and whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token with equip 2. So these are just going to let our evasive creatures get in for extra value besides having our commander out. And now we get into the main win con of the deck, which is cards like Quietus Spike. Quietus Spike's a 3 mana artifact equipment. It says equipped creature has Death Touch. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half their life rounded up. So with cards like Quietus Spike out, it turns our little small 1/1 creatures into, it could be, you know, 20/20s, or you're playing against a life gain deck that has 80 life, could be 40 basically. So, you know, you're poking somebody for a lot of damage there, and obviously people are not going to like that. This is not going to be sticking around very long, so if you can get it out and swing with it immediately, that's probably going to be your best bet. Similarly, we got Scythe Claw. This one's a little bit more expensive, 5 mana for an artifact equipment, but it does have Living Weapon, so it means we don't actually have to have a creature on the battlefield already. We can just play this and then swing with it if we have maybe our Crashing Drawbridge to give it haste, or we just wait till the next turn. And it says equipped creature gets +1/+1, and whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half their life rounded up, equip 3. So yeah, it is a little bit more expensive, but these effects are far and few in between, so it's nice to have a little bit of redundancy in here. Obviously, Quietus Spike's a lot better, but Scythe Claw also works. Another pretty fun one, we got Vorpal Sword, 1 black mana artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has Death Touch. Another really expensive ability here is 5 black. Until end of turn, Vorpal Sword gains whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game, and equip black. So again, just like Quietus Spike, basically this entire category, if your opponents see this coming, they are not going to let it stick around long, because you're going to kill somebody with one of these abilities if your opponents don't have anything to stop it. And another little fun win con we have here is with Strixhaven Stadium. I've been trying to put this card in a deck for a long time, and I'm stoked that it actually works in this deck. 3 mana artifact, tapped out a colorless, which is always nice, and put a point counter on Strixhaven Stadium. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to you, remove a point counter from Strixhaven Stadium, and whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to an opponent, put a point counter on Strixhaven Stadium. Then if it has 10 or more point counters on it, remove them all, and that player loses the game. So again, people are not going to like this, and it's probably going to go straight to the graveyard if your opponents have anything to say about it, but it could actually end up winning you the game from time to time. Another way we can win the game without our opponents immediately going for them is going to be cards like Drana Liberator of Malakir. It's going to be 1 black for a 2/3 vampire ally. Has flying and first strike. Says whenever drawn a Liberator of Malakir deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on each attacking creature you control. So this one's just going to pump up our little team of unblockable guys to eventually chip away our opponent's life totals. And similarly, we got Necropolis Regent, which is basically the big super cool version of Drana. It's 3 black for a 6/5 flying, which fits our evasion theme. And it says whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, put that many +1/+1 counters on it. So while Drana only puts a +1/+1 counter on each attacking creature you control, if you have, say that Dauthi Warlord is already at 4 power because you have all your shadow guys out, that's going to double it up to 8 and then into 16. It just gets out of hand really quick with that card. So that one can really put some games out. And since our commander's ability is going to be having us pay life all the time, it could help to pad our life totals with a few life gain cards, such as Tendrils of Corruption. It's 3 and a black for an instant. Tendrils of Corruption deals X damage to target creature and you gain X life, where X is the number of swamps you control. In a mono black deck, this is a really sweet card, especially if you have Urborg like I do in this deck, which you don't need. If you want to go for a more budget version of this deck, you don't actually need Urborg and Cabal Coffers, but I do. I already had them, so I thought I'd use them in this deck. It's pretty sweet to have some big mana options. Another life gain card, we got Crypt Incursion, 2 and a black, instant. Exile all creature cards from target player's graveyard. You gain 3 life for each card exiled this way. So there's multiple ways you can use this. You can either point it at the guy who has tons of creatures in his graveyard, like a Gruul deck or something, or you can do someone that's going to be reanimating their graveyard to just completely host their strategy. And then you're going to be gaining tons of life for all the creatures you're exiling. And probably our best life gain card in the deck is going to be Venser's Journal. It's 5 colorless mana for an artifact. It says you have no maximum hand size, which is actually really good because we're going to be drawing lots of cards off our commander's ability. But the effect we really want is at the beginning of your upkeep, you gain 1 life for each card in your hand. So considering how many cards we can be drawing with our commander's ability, it's possible that every upkeep we could have 5, 6, 7 cards in our hand, which means more life to be gained. And similarly to Urborg and Cabal Coffers, we have some other big mana options in the deck with Liliana of the Dark Realms, 2 black for a 3 loyalty Planeswalker. It says +1, search your library for a swamp card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. The -3 is target creature gets +X or -X until end of turn, where X is the number of swamps you control. So this can do 2 things. One, we can either pump up one of our unblockable creatures to swing in for lethal later in the game, or we can get rid of a creature that's going to be attacking us. But the real reason we like this card is for the -6. You get an emblem with swamps you control have. Tap, add 4 black mana to your mana pool. I can't believe how much mana this thing produces, and you can just go to town with either your commander's ability or using your Vorpal Sword or maybe your Shard of the Nightbringer, something like that. It's pretty insane. Another fun one I really like in the deck's Coveted Jewel. It's 6 mana for an artifact. It says when Coveted Jewel enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards, and then tap to add 3 mana of any one color. And whenever one or more creatures an opponent controls attacks you and aren't blocked, that player draws 3 cards and gains control of Coveted Jewel. Untap it. So normally I wouldn't really play a card like this, but since we do have so much evasion in the deck, and it's entirely likely this can get passed around between you and another opponent several times and you'll be drawing tons of cards off of it, I think it's kind of worth it to give your opponent a little bit of advantage just so you get even more off of it. And we got a few removal options in this deck with cards like Defile, 1 black for an instant. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn for each swamp you control. Obviously, if you have Urborg out, it's going to pretty much kill any creature. Sometimes you don't even need Urborg out because you have 25 swamps in the deck, so it's likely you're going to have enough swamps to kill pretty much anything you want. Another cool one is Umezawa's Jitte. It's 2 mana for a legendary artifact equipment. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage, put 2 charge counters on Umezawa's Jitte. Remove a charge counter from Umezawa's Jitte and choose 1. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn, or you gain 2 life and has equipped 2. There's multiple ways we can use this. Obviously, we can get, if we have enough charge counters on it, we can pump one of our unblockable guys enough to get lethal. We could pump down one of our opponent's creatures to kill it, or if we're pretty low and we're going to die to like some sort of X damage spell or something, we could be gaining a bunch of life off of it as well. And another pretty flavorful kill spell in this deck is going to be Font of Agonies. 1 black for an enchantment. It says whenever you pay life, put that many blood counters on Font of Agonies, which is all the time with our commander's ability. And we have 1 and a black for remove 4 blood counters from Font of Agonies to destroy target creature. This can get out of hand really quick. If you have this out on turn 1 and you're swinging with your little unblockable guys and you get multiple pay life triggers and you get blood counters on this guy, you can start going to town with killing all your opponent's creatures off. And last category is just a couple little secret techs that I like in this deck. First up, we got Rings of Bright Hearth. It's 3 mana for an artifact. Whenever you activate an ability, if it isn't a mana ability, you may pay 2. If you do copy that ability, you may choose new targets for the copy. So like I said, we aren't really using our commander's second ability all that much, but if we do happen to use it, it is pretty nice that we get basically double the advantage off of it. So if you pay 6 black for obviously the ability and Rings of Bright Hearth, so 9 mana total, you can discard, say you have 5 lands in your hand, discard 5 lands, and then you exile the top 10 cards of target opponent's library, and the value there is just so worth it. I could not pass it up. And last but not least, this one's getting a lot of buzz right now, so I figured I would put it in this deck. It seemed like the one that fit the most. It's Orcish Bowmasters, 1 and a black, creature Orc Archer, 1/1, flash. It says when Orcish Bowmasters enters the battlefield, and whenever an opponent draws a card, except the first one they draw on each of their draw steps, Orcish Bowmasters deals 1 damage to any target, and then amass Orcs 1. So this one's really strong in this deck, especially because we're letting our opponents draw off of our commander's ability, so they're going to be taking extra damage either to the face or to their creatures with each time they're using it. And then obviously we also get amass Orcs 1, which means more creatures to deal more combat damage. So that's pretty much it for the Gix deck. It is super fun to pilot. I don't have any other mono black decks, and this is a really fun first one for me. I don't play it as often as I want to. I'm still getting some cards to really get it in line to how I want it to be, but if you want to check out the link, I got an Architect link down in the description for you to check out the deck list if you'd like. And that's going to be it for today's deck tech. Thanks so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you guys next time. All right, take care.